Today's guest burst onto the mountain bike scene as a 14-year-old, and he's never slowed down since. One of the most exciting downhill riders in the world, he won his first World Cup in incredible style on home soil in Monte Saint Anne in 2022, and actually me and Eliot were lucky enough to be commentating on it. And he's been one of the most consistent riders in the world ever since. He's placed himself in the Canadian World Cup Hall of Fame, which is far from an easy task, and we've wanted him on this chat forever. So welcome to Just Ride, Finn Iles. How are you, Finn?
Thank you for having me. I'm pretty fantastic.
You are. And look at that big smile on his face after an amazing second place at the Leogang World Cup downhill yesterday. After, I'm going to say, a tricky weekend. You're pretty happy, right?
Yeah, really happy. This weekend was super difficult.
Wait, take us, why was it so difficult? It wasn't a regular difficult weekend.
No, it wasn't. It was one of those weekends where I wasn't even sure I was actually going to race. So on Friday in time practice, I felt all day on Friday, I felt amazing on my bike. I was hitting all my lines. The bike felt good. We made all these changes the week before, and I felt like, finally, I'm riding like Finn, and I'm stoked to be riding like that. And I kind of got too confident and too excited.
Riding too well.
Yeah. So then it was like the last run, and I was doing my time training run. I was like, holy, I'm riding really good right now. And then I was like, I'm just going to keep going faster and faster and faster. And then I came into the bottom woods, and I came into the very last turn, sort of before that creek gap. And I got stood up in a turn, and I punched a tree, tried to save it. And then there was a second tree, and I hit it. And then I just got kind of high-sided, and I flipped down the hill, and Bartek was actually standing. He's not there anymore.
You're looking Where's he at?
Where's that photographer?
Bartek was standing right there, and I slammed and got up, and he's like, you all right? I was like, my thumb kind of hurts. And then I went to the bottom, and I went to ride the next day. My hand was super swollen. The rest of my body was pretty beat up, and I was just super tired. I couldn't focus. And I felt like if I ride tomorrow and my thumb has no strength in it and I crash and I smoke myself, it would be pretty useless, because then I would miss that race and I would miss Val di Sole the next weekend. So I decided to take semis and qualifying off on Saturday and just prepare myself for Sunday. And so I woke up on Sunday and I did a concussion test. We went through a bunch of thumb movement stuff, and I passed everything and was like, all right, game time. What can I do?
Game time. And that is big, really. Then you went into yesterday's finals really with no level. I would say that, to me, that would be the challenge. You didn't have a time to sort of work off. You didn't know how fast you were going.
Yeah, that was the hardest thing for me, is trying to find those little milliseconds, where in the last practice runs, instead of trying to figure out lines, I would normally be, all right, in this corner, if I break 0.1 later, or I break here, or I don't break here, I'll gain these little time set, like these little parts of time kind of thing.
Up, yeah.
Exactly. And yesterday morning, I was coming in these sections, I was like, I haven't ridden this line yet. I wonder if it's fast.
Wow.
I don't know. I guess I'll just try it. And then I did 2 runs, and I changed almost all my lines in the woods. But luckily for me, because I did that really fast run on Friday, I knew the speed for the top section, and I knew, even though it was my 6th or 7th run, my splits in time training were almost as fast as like the qualifying and the semi guys.
Wow.
Which was really good. So I was like, all right, I have the speed at the top. I just need to figure out the bottom. And I didn't quite have it yesterday. Like, you can see at the splits before the motorway, I was up on by 0.3 or 0.4.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the bottom, he just absolutely waxed me. And he came into the bottom woods, he quadded into that after the wall ride, and I was like, it's over. And I just when he starts doing stuff like that, you're like, damn, he's confident.
He don't often make mistakes.
He doesn't when he's like that. And it's frustrating, because I came to the woods, I didn't really know where I was. I was like, oh, I totally just missed that line, and then I had to refocus. I was like, main line with confidence, just get to the bottom, ride calm, ride smooth, and hit the lines that you practiced this morning, because I'd only done them twice. And I did a good job of that, but obviously you can't really win a World Cup when you have, that kind of mindset riding the last part of the track. And I think that everything is so tight these days. I mean, yesterday we kind of got smoked, but everything's so tight where it just adds up, and I'm just over braking in these sections. But because I rode the top well enough, the bottom section wasn't as important as it maybe could have been.
So I think what's interesting too is you talked about how deliberate you are in every practice run. Could you go through the structure of the race? So you would, over the weekend, so it's like, okay, I do X number of runs on practice day, and then we have semifinals and qualifying, and I do X number of runs, and then compare that to what you did this weekend.
Yeah, so on a regular weekend, on the first day of practice, I would do 6 runs. I would do, because we have a split practice now, I would do 3 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. The first 3 are I'll change all my lines. I'll check say there's 2 lines that are fast or there's 2 exits that are fast. I'll try everything. I'll be like inside to outside, outside to inside, inside, sort of trying to figure out what's the best line. And I'll ride with the GoPro all the time, speak with my mechanic, sort of figure out the bike setup, whether we need to make changes to the front end, to the shock, to tires, whatever.
We're going to have to talk about your bike in a minute.
We will. Actually, I don't know how much I can tell you, but
Do you study the GoPro between runs?
I do actually. Me and Jordan this year have spent a lot of time watching each other's GoPros and riding together, which has been really cool because Loic kind of does his own thing. But having Jordan on the team has been really cool because we're able to look at each other's GoPros, we're able to ride together, and I think it kind of helps both of us ride faster because he has a different approach than I do. And I find that watching him ride and seeing his lines sort of helps me think more open-minded about the course. Because a lot of times I'll be like, this is the line, it's my line, and I know it's the fastest line. And Jordan will be like, what about this? And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So that's quite cool. And then in between practice, I'll like eat and have a nap. I like to sleep a lot. So have a nap, and then I'll like talk to Kevin. We'll get the bike ready for the afternoon. First run in the afternoon, I'll normally just go look, make sure I'm riding fast, check all the lines, and then the last 2, I'll try and do a full run both times so I can get a timed run in.
So on the first day of practice, by the end of the day, you would, after 6 runs, you're going fast then?
Yeah, pretty fast. Yeah, it's not like race pace, but it's definitely like you're testing the limit on some of the corners where you feel most comfortable.
Yeah.
It's hard to be super comfortable the whole way down, but in some of the, I would say, easier sections, you're almost pretty tapped.
Interesting.
And then for semifinals and qualifying day, wake up, 2 runs, sort of continuing on the pace from the day before. And then the biggest thing for me in qualifying is to get the mindset, because now between practice and qualifying, there's not a lot of time, but you have to be able to get in the zone really fast so that because there's points for qualifying, you have to make sure that you're ready for that.
So what does that mean when you say like get in the mindset?
I would say doing full runs on the first day is kind of stressful because you're doing a full run and you're riding really fast, but there's no consequence. It's sort of getting your mind ready to ride under expectation, I think, is the biggest thing.
And even to step back, one of the things, like I guess in most sports, doesn't really work. Like you don't normally stop. So like that's something that a downhill rider would do is like you do a run and then maybe a quarter way down, you pull off on the side of the track, maybe you watch something. And so when you say like doing full runs and like getting into the mindset to do full runs, it almost, I guess, from the outside is like, oh, but isn't that just the sport? Like, don't you always just do full runs kind of thing?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I've never thought about that before because I guess if you're driving cars, you're riding moto, you're skiing, whatever, you're doing full runs for training.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of unique to our sport. And I think that makes it quite cool because you're able to watch other riders to see what they're doing. You're able to speak with the team's trackside people. You can make changes to your lines and you can actually spend time analyzing everything. So I think that makes, because we only have, we have the qualies and the semis, but like this weekend for me, only one run counted. I can only get points for one run. And I think that having that makes that one run more special because you spend so much time analyzing everything and looking at every little possible millisecond that you can gain, that when you go for your final run, if you get it right, you can get it so right. And there's like no mistakes, like you watched Loic's run yesterday and you're like, wow. In the woods, you're like, what did he just do?
Yeah.
It's really, and it's unbelievable because he spent so much time with our guys in the woods looking at lines. You saw his lines were completely different than mine. He had different lines to Oshin, who was like, I think the second fastest in the woods. And you just get it right. And I think that's a cool thing for us because we're able to do that. And I think that makes that last run extra high level.
And it's we've talked to a decent amount of Tour de France riders, and we've really started to understand like what a team structure is, right? Like you have a team captain, and you have the domestiques, and then you have the people driving the cars and stuff like that. So like, what is the structure of a downhill team? Like when you say we have guys up there, and you mentioned Kevin, your mechanic.
Totally. Specialized is run very well. So our race team is run from the top with our team manager, Laurent, team owner Laurent, who has been in this business for 20, 25 years, like a really long time, especially for this sport because it's still quite young. And below him, we have the team manager. And then from there, it's like we have a physio, we have a chef, we have a truck driver, each one of us has our own mechanic. And then we work hand in hand with our mechanics. So I wouldn't work with Loic's or Jordan's or whatever. It's me and Kevin, and this is our bike, and all three of us are completely different. Like Jordan's bike, if I got on it and went to ride, I'd be like, this is the worst bike I've ever ridden, you know, kind of thing, where it's like so different to what I would ride. And the same with Loic's. I mean, Loic's is a little bit more similar to mine, but I still can't ride it. It just feels completely wrong. And then from there, we have two guys on the track. One of them's name is Renault, and the other one's name is Nix. And they've been with the team for 4 or 5 years now. And they go out and during track walk, we'll like mark certain sections. Be like, all right, Nix, I want you to be here. Renault, I want you to be here. And then we need to talk as riders to be like, what's the most important section? Because a lot of times we'll be like, Loic will want somebody here, I want somebody there, Jordan will want somebody here. And so we have to make it all work.
So you orchestrate where they are to best aid you.
Exactly, yeah. Especially like the more tricky sections and the sections with a lot of lines. I mean, there's no use for them to be on the motorway. It's like in Leo Gang. But
It's down at you.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But you know, there's the one stump section there that's really important, and they spent a bit of time there. And then the bottom woods is where the race is always won or lost. And they spent, I mean, I wasn't out there, but I think the entire qualifying day they were down there in the forest with Loic and Jordan looking at insides, outsides.
Right. And so they'll film, and you guys are on the radio to them when you're in the pits.
They have these little earpieces now, so they're cruising around. It looks like they're in the FBI. They're like helmet on with like the earpiece, and they'll be like, Nix, and it's like it's pretty funny. It's really, and we have like we just use iCloud, and we have like the shared album, and all three of us have.
Oh wow! So they don't have to come down to show you videos. They just share them from
way. So it's live.
Yeah. All three of us have like
way. So you don't wait till the end of the day to get all those videos and look at them. So that gives you such an advantage that you can improve there and then.
Yeah.
I had never back in that didn't happen obviously in my era.
Yeah.
We're lucky with technology. I mean, with
someone have to come down and load it.
Well,
It was
we
true.
had even
That's mad,
back
though, it's
in
right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
like 7 or 8 years ago, like you would have people up there. There was only a couple of people up there, but they would have to come down and then maybe go over some video or whatever, and then like.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even in the last 2 or 3 years, we have team iPads now, so each one of us has an iPad, and the sole purpose of having the iPad is to upload GoPro and look at footage from the guys that's like live uploaded.
No way.
And then we can radio them after we've watched the video, and they'll like get on their thing and be like, all right, what do you think, high or low? And they'll be like, this suits you more versus this. Like, I'll never ride. Sometimes
Do you trust them?
Completely. Like
You do as a rider, because that sounds
You have
mad.
to.
You do, yeah.
you really have to. I mean, some weekends when you're really on it, I won't even talk to them. I'll just be
Is
like,
that right?
I'll check the video. I'll be like, that's the right line. And I won't even have to think about it. But this weekend especially, I really relied on them yesterday in the morning. I was like, hey, Nix, like, do I go low to high, like outside to inside? And he was like, Finn only has 2 runs. Do I
like
tell him to
chess.
change his run,
Right.
his line?
Yeah.
Because Loic was on a completely different line, and I think Loic's line was better.
Right.
But he goes, yep, outside to inside's the line. Just keep doing it. And it was like, then I don't have to think about anything. And there's no
Right.
thoughts for me where it's like, I'm going to come down in that section in my race run and second guess myself.
Sure.
It's like, I had 2 runs. This is the line I did, and I'm not changing it. And that's what it is.
Cool.
Nick said
That's
it works.
strong.
And that's
Yeah.
what
That
it
is strong, because it's so easy.
to second guess everything.
Oh, to get pulled into the trap. You've got, especially when you've got options of eyes on the mountain for you as well.
Yeah.
So, it's another that you say. So that's I find that impressive that you can put it in their hands and go with it. But you're right, man.
Yeah.
Get rid of all that other chatter in your head.
Exactly. And I think going back to like what we talked about with the team structure, that's why our team is so special, because there's trust from the very top
Sure.
all the way down, from Laurent making the decisions to Kevin working on the bike to the boys on the track to the physio to the chef to everything, where we just trust everybody. We know that it works. We trust the process, and you can see the results over the last few years where it just works.
Yeah.
And I think that
No
that
doubt.
trust creates such a good team camaraderie where everybody in the pit gets along with everybody in the pit. There's no animosity. It's,
Even you
it's-
3 riders get on, because it was a genius move really by Laurent to bring in young Jordan, who came out and won his first Elite World Cup race
Ridiculous.
in front of you. And
I know. I was on the podium and I was like, I'm on the podium. And I was just standing there. I was like,
God.
I feel like a loser. Because it was like Loic in third, Jordan in first. I was like, how is this happening?
Yeah,
And-
totally.
But Bruni, I remember vividly in the post-race interview, he was like, no more favors now to Jordan. And I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
you actually, is the right, because there's got to be the dynamic between you and Eliot to me is fascinating because you get on so well, but you are mad rivals. You are, the pair of you are unbelievably competitive.
Yeah.
And that doesn't spill over.
Sometimes, like sometimes it does a little bit. Like at dinner the other night, we got in an argument. We were sitting beside each other and we were sitting there. We're just like,
like I'm
kinda,
eating my peas.
yeah. And then it was like kind of like one of these where it's like, okay, we're good. Yeah, a little bit.
Sometimes you have to have it out, but you know each other and you can talk to each other, right?
It's like
you're close.
Well, it's
I mean, it's like brothers at this
Yeah.
point. We've been on
Yeah.
the same team I joined the team when I was 15. So I'm 25 this year. It's been 10 years together on the same team.
No, why? I didn't realize it was so much
It's
time had gone
been,
by.
yeah. And I think what helps us in this sport is that we don't have to race against each other.
That's true.
Because
Yeah.
if we did, there would probably be some like block passes and like taking
Yeah.
people out in the corners. And then it would be big time animosity
Yeah.
in the pit. But because it's like, if he beats me one day and I didn't perform as well as I could have, I'm like, you know what? He was better than me today.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way street. And I think
You're
that
racing the track, yeah.
yeah, I mean, yesterday I was really frustrated. I like gave him a high five and I gave him a big hug, and I was like, I'm like, this is so impressive.
Yeah.
And I turned around and was like, God damn it.
yeah.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Well, Finn, I feel like one of the most special moments, like definitely for Rob and I, was seeing you get your first win in Monte Saint Anne. It was like home soil.
Oh.
I mean, it was for me like one of the, the best runs I've ever gotten to commentate on.
Thank you so much.
And it was in our last year of World Cup commentary, and we needed that, right? I did. I wanted to call that run, man. I wanted
was
you to
so-
win at home
It
in
was-
Monte Saint Anne. It was like a dream unfolding in front of us in the commentary box.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
was.
like
It was
I just
amazing.
remember like after the run, I saw your dad like come up and hug you. I got tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
I was at the podium just like watching. It was just so
It was insane
emotional.
to do that,
There's
to
a
pull
lot.
that off.
Like take us through the weekend. Like it felt like it was perfect to me. I guess like from the outside, I just saw you and the amount of confidence you had. And
Yeah, I was so frustrated coming into that weekend because I went second, third. Well, at the beginning of the year, I was second in Lords. I got a concussion. I came back. I missed a World Cup. I went sixth, and then we changed bikes halfway through the season to the new specialized like prototype. And then I went second, third. Snowshoe and I never really get on, so I think I ended up 10th in Snowshoe. I was so frustrated. I was like, it's right there. I know it's right there. I'm riding so well, and I can't put my finger on why it's not working. We went to Monte Saint Anne. We flew into Canada. We landed in Canada, and like the border guard went to me. He was like, hey, how are you? And they're like, you having a good day? And I was like, you know what? I am having a good day. It's like really nice to be back in Canada. You know, it's like that feeling of kind of coming, because like, it was like kind of felt like home. It's Quebec. They speak French, but they're still Canadian. So they're still Canadian. It sounded, you know what I mean? They
are Canadian. They are Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't speak French.
Me neither. Anyway, let's move on.
You know
We have
what?
an
You know what I
international
mean?
incident on our hands.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's not like it's like when Loic goes to Quebec.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
They speak French with him,
Right.
and he
It's
connects
a middle
really well
ground
with,
for you and Louis.
Yeah, it is a bit because
Yeah.
he connects really well with the fans.
Interesting.
But
does.
because I'm Canadian, I connect really well with
Right.
the fans as well. And I think that because I'm Canadian, I get a little extra support.
It's your country.
I hope.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, anyways, we came into Canada. I was like, yes, I'm home.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just had this feeling, and it was like in my chest. I was like, this is gonna be an amazing week. I love this track. My parents are coming. I've been on a roll. There was something there. And from the first run of practice, this was one of those weekends where I just said that I don't talk to the guys if I'm having a really good weekend. And
What do you mean by that? You won't.
I won't talk to the track guys. I'll be like, I know what
you won't share information with Loic and Jordan.
I will, but
But do you ever lock that down? Is there ever
no,
such an advantage?
it's always an open.
That's
always
absolutely
open chat.
fair and
yeah,
true.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But it was more like they were on track and they're like, Finn, do you need help from us? I was like, nah, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I hang up the phone kind of thing. I was like, I got this one, boys. Stop bothering me. I got this one. So then, the first day of practice, bike felt good. I felt good. And then in qualifying, I won by 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And I always have the exact same routine every race weekend. So I wear the same underwear, the same socks, the same. And I do the same thing after every practice. I go to the river. I sit in the river for 10 minutes. I do my legs. And then I wake up the next morning and I probably eat the same breakfast that I ate before. And then I wear the same gloves and the same goggles and everything else. I'm like very particular. And it's like, I always wear red for timed runs. I love red goggles and red gloves.
Yeah.
And I had a white kit and I had red gloves.
Yeah.
And it
You
looked,
never felt fresh.
I was like, I look so good right now. Like, yeah, it was like really exciting. And then so my best friend Thomas was there and he was filming some stuff for Red Bull Canada. And he was like sitting there. He's like, you could win tomorrow, hey? And I was like, yeah, I guess I could, because it was 3.5 seconds of qualifying.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess we'll see. And then I started getting really nervous. So the next day I woke up and I was like, had to go to the bathroom a couple times. Didn't really want to eat. I was really nervous. And there were so many people and people come, they're like, Finn, today's your day. Like, you got this.
My goodness.
And then
I
you
can't
start,
even
and then you start
imagine.
thinking
For sure.
like,
Yeah.
I did an interview before and I was like, there was, it was like the year that Long Live Chainsaw was released.
Yeah.
Stevie had won there. He was the last Canadian to win a World
2013
Cup.
he won, didn't he? In
Yeah.
Saint Anne,
Yeah.
yeah.
Stevie Smith.
And
Yeah. The late, great Stevie Smith.
yeah. And he's like, I mean, Stevie's the legend for all Canadians downhillers, and it's like the guy who sort of inspired this generation
No
of
question,
riders. Where
that's
you look,
right.
you're like, that guy did it. I can be that guy too. And so coming to Saint Anne and doing an interview before, and then on race day, I was in the morning, I was like, holy smokes, like I'm going last. This is all these things started coming into my head, and I was like starting to feel it a little bit. But in practice, as soon as I got on the bike, I couldn't think of anything else. It was just me and the bike. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Last practice run, I came down, I said, Kevin, the bike is too soft. He goes, it's too soft. I said, the shock needs to be stiffer. And he went up 2 spring rates, a spring we'd never used on the bike
spring
before.
rates?
Never.
We have, but with Olin's, our
Okay.
spring rate gap is like,
Okay.
it could be 9, it could be 12, but it's not like 20 or 50.
Okay.
So it's like, I went from like a 469 to like a 490.
Okay. Yes, for everyone, like that's a big change.
Yeah.
For you would never normally go up in a spring rate,
Yeah.
especially when you don't have an extra run. But
And so then we went up spring rates, and I was like, all right. Kevin's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And we did it. And then I went up for my run and I was like warming up, and I qualified first before, and I think I finished 4th. It was in snowshoe in 2021. And then I was like, I started getting this feeling. I was like, this is so dope. I'm like, last man to drop, everything on the line, all this pressure. And I was like, listening to music before, and I was like,
What?
I started like
yeah,
getting,
do you remember the song?
yeah, I listen to like classical music before I race.
That's
Come on! What, Walk of the Valkyrie or something? What
No,
was it?
it's like
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
It's like a movie.
Totally,
like it'd be
yeah.
like so it's weird. It's
Like
Is
super
it the
weird.
same one every time?
The last 2 songs are always the same.
Oh, that's
Yeah, and like if I really like a
totally.
movie, I'll add like.
love
Have you
it.
seen
That's
like
so
the
good.
movie Oppenheimer?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the song "Can You Hear the Music" is in my like pre-race playlist now, because it's
Wow,
like
that's so
you kind of like
good.
get it builds, and it's
I
like
hadn't ever
whoa.
thought of that.
That's so nice.
So I was
Yeah.
like, I was like warming up, and I was like, started getting a big smile on my face. I was like, oh yeah, like today is gonna be dope. You know, it's
Oh
like you
my
start picturing
God.
everything. You're
Yeah.
like, you can feel it in your chest. And then I got in the start gate, and I do the same thing with my gloves. I go like 3 rolls, so they're tight on my hands, and then I do 3 on the back.
You have got some scheduling
Oh my
going
god,
into a race.
it's crazy! It's
Got
crazy.
routine.
And I play with my goggles a little bit, and I do something with my helmet. Actually, one time, you in one of my race runs, you commented, I was like playing with my goggles, and you're like, the Canadian looks nervous. He's fidgeting with his goggles. And I was like, it's actually just my pre-race routine.
Oh, sorry. I'm glad we got that out.
Anyways, I did that, and then I dropped in, and I don't remember. I just
Yeah.
remember when I broke my chain guide and I like snapped the chain ring. I was like, oh, it's
Yeah, because you couldn't pedal it.
I
We-
couldn't pedal it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I was like, he is.
God.
So in Mount Saint Anne, where Finn won, it's a super iconic track where you have this up at the top. It's incredibly fast, and then you have a extremely iconic rock section. It's like one of the more difficult rock sections, and then after that, it's relatively straightforward to the finish.
Yeah.
And you were up, you came out of the rock section, and you come around this turn onto like kind of a fire road. And I remember you came out of the rock section. I was like, he's done it. Like he's
I was like
got it.
1.2 up, I think.
Yeah, and I saw you come out of the turn and you tried to pedal and it didn't go.
Yeah.
And I saw you like look down. I was like, his chain,
Yeah.
he can't pedal.
And it was quite flat though.
Yeah,
It was, yeah, at the
you
bottom.
need to pedal.
Yeah, you do.
You need to
Yeah,
pedal.
that's right.
It was pretty funny. I had a couple moments up at the top. There was like a huge loose boulder. I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like nothing can go wrong today, kind of thing. Like you feel it. And
Yeah.
then I came in the rock, and there was like coming into that famous rock garden. I basically was trying to do this double past a stump.
Yeah.
And in practice, 6 runs in a row, I broke a chain guide.
Wow. And you still went
And I was
for
just
it.
like, yeah, but I never broke a chain ring. I only broke,
Sure.
but in race run, when you come
I
in
see.
way faster,
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
like, boom, and I felt it in my feet. And then as I came out of the rock garden, there's like a double on, double off. And I doubled on, I went to pedal, and it was just like, and it got stuck. And it stopped here. And then that's where you saw me come out, and I
Yeah.
tried to like kick it,
Yeah.
and it was stuck. So I went through that whole section, and then I was like,
your head then.
I wasn't even thinking. Like I was like, just
Wow.
the first time I thought was when I scrubbed down, I kind of cased the double, and I was looking, I was like 1.2. And I was like,
I know, you could just see you waiting.
and I was like,
there
I'm
to
waiting
the
for this. I'm
finish.
waiting for this.
Yeah.
And then I crossed, and I like, it took a second, you know, I saw my name drop below Lori's.
Yeah.
And then it was like green. And I
Yeah.
was just like, I've never felt like the most like, it was like the deepest sense of like, I like threw my bike and just started screaming.
Yeah,
and like
I remember that.
There's
I
a
remember
video my friend got, and the scream, I've never sounded like that ever. It was like, I don't know. I looked like,
I
it
mean,
was a
and
special day.
like you gotta look at the time as well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
that was a big one. I told Rob after. I was like, I'm so proud that I got one of those before.
Yeah.
you
It was
know?
great to do it.
Yeah.
It was, you know, those runs only come along every now and again
Yeah.
like that, and it was like I said, it was honestly, I was absolutely, and I bet you were as well, just so pumped
Yeah, it was
to
insane.
deliver an
It was
iconic
insane.
commentary to an iconic
Yeah.
run. Really,
I
it was a cool
appreciate
feeling,
that.
mate.
I
Yeah, it worked
appreciate
out for all of us. We
Yeah.
loved it.
Thank you.
for sure. Finn, I love the way that we've done this because we've talked about like you today and like all of this structure, all of these routines and
Yeah.
stuff. But the first time I remember you was in Whistler at the Whip Off 2014. Like I was riding it. And there was this random kid from Whistler who was 14 years old. And there was a social media campaign, Let Finn In, because you were 2 years
Yeah.
too young to ride
Yeah.
in this Whip Off. Do you even remember that? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
What was that? Well, explain what the Whip Off is. And we were at Crankworks.
Yeah.
And then like, what happened? Like, how did that even get started?
So, growing up, Crankworks, I've been going to Crankworks since I can't remember. I went 2006. When was the first time Paul Bass won?
Good grief.
Man.
2006.
Yeah, it was-
I was
it
the
was a
first
while
one I
ago.
went to.
Yeah.
So I went 2006. My dad, my brother, and I drove out from Alberta because I grew up in Alberta.
So you were like, what, 8 or 9 years old?
I was
Something
6
like
years
that?
old.
6 years
yeah,
old.
6
Wow.
years old. I went to that was the first one I went to, and we went every year after that. And you know, Crankworks sort of grew from the slopestyle to then there was the downhill races and everything else, and then the whip off. And that was one of the only events I could do because I was too young to compete in the downhills because you had to be 13 or whatever. So like at 12, 13, I would do the whip off. But then the one year they decided to change the age. So I think you had to be 16 or 18. And I was like, this is bullshit. And I guess like there was a few people around Whistler that were, super supportive of me.
Sure.
And
Influential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And wanted me, well, not me, but they were absolutely like, they wanted me to be in. And
Yeah.
they're like, you could win. And I was, I
Yeah.
don't know about that. Like, I just want to go ride my bike. And then they started this hashtag. It was like, let Finn in. And then Vital, a guy, Brandon Truman from Vital, and Lear Miller came out and filmed me in Whistler. And they posted the video on Vital with hashtag let Finn in. And it started and it went around social media. And then eventually they let me in.
Yeah.
And then I ended up winning.
Yeah.
And I was like, I look back and I'm like, I wonder if they just let me win because they let me in.
We gotta make it because it's funny
But,
because we've seen so many people come out of Whistler who are more on the free ride side, like a Simonuk and people like that. Because like whip is like it's not a trick, but it's like
It's something,
it's something.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
an
like
in-between.
pure.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that with Jackson now, where he was more on the free ride side, and you didn't really know what he was going to do. And I kind of felt like that a little bit for you. Like you could have done anything. You were never like super into free ride or anything. But Whistler is this microcosm of like bike riding, like so much opportunity. When did you think about racing World Cups for the first time, or really like putting a lot into it?
It's hard to say. I think that year was the first year that I decided that like I really wanted to be a mountain biker.
2014.
2014 because I was ski racing, I was bike racing.
And you were
at
really good at ski racing.
I mean, I was young, but
You
I
were
was
a Canadian champion.
I was provincial champion. So I was provincial champion that year in
Downhill ski racing.
Yeah, maybe the year before.
That would have been a sick career too.
Yeah, I can't even remember at this point. But for my age in Canada, I was one of the better skiers in GS. I was quite small. Like I didn't grow till I was 15 or 16, so I was quite small. But I skied GS super well. And then in mountain biking, it was the same thing. And at one point, I went, "I'm going to be a ski racer. This is what I want to do. Mom, Dad, this is what we should do. I'm going to go to the ski camp." And then the bike park opened in Whistler. This was the year SRAM sent me some suspension, and it was like the black boxers. It was like the first year they started making them like that, but I got them before everybody. And I was like, damn, this is cool. I was talking to Tyler Moreland on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna like hook you up with some stuff." And I was like, "No way, that's so cool." And then it showed up, and it was like the black suspension. I was like, "Mom, Dad, what is going on? Like, this is crazy." And then
we're switching to mountain bikes.
Well, no. And then I got a bike from Trek, and I went to opening weekend of the Whistler Bike Park. I rode with my friends, and I went home and said, "I'm not going to ski camp."
Wow, just because you loved biking more.
Just loved it more.
Wow.
Yeah, and so then that was the same year that I did the whip off.
Sure.
And I think going back to the whip off, I think there was a lot of people there behind the scenes that I still don't quite know about that were like helping to push me get in. Like I think Sven had a big hand in it, and there's a lot of people around Whistler that were really supportive and stood behind me that I was too young to really understand, and I still don't quite know the whole story. Anyways, so that summer I did the whip off, and I won a couple races at Crankworks, and then I went to Monte Saint Anne because my brother was racing the Junior World Cup there, or the World Cup there, and I went and I watched, and I pre-ran because I was Canadian, and me and my friend Magnus went out and we pre-ran the World Cup.
No way.
Yeah, and I met Laurent Delorme, who is my team manager now.
Wow.
And apparently Blinky saw me riding.
Yeah, Sam Blinkenstop, who was he was on your team.
He was on Lapierre
World
at the
Cup
time.
winner.
Yeah. He went down and told Laurent that there was this kid that was really fast, and Laurent came up to me and said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 14. And he goes, "Come by the pit later." I went by the pit. I got his email. We started emailing my parents and him. The next year, I was racing for Lapierre. I was in New Zealand 6 months later with Loic and Loris.
Yeah.
And it went from...
So it happened overnight almost.
In 8 months.
Crazy.
I went from, I'm going to be a ski racer to... I'm on a pro team at 15 years old. Like, what the heck is going on?
You were really like the first person to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like you were, because now, so like downhill structure, you have the junior class, which is 17 and 18, and then you move up to elite. And so it's like your age at the end of the year. But when you say you were 15, that means that there was no races for you to do at the World Cup level. Yeah. And you were the first person to be on that team. They would take you to the races and you would pre-run the courses. You were getting, did you understand the gravity of that, or?
Not quite at the time. I thought I was hot shit.
I remember this. I was in New Zealand. I would see you in New Zealand,
just
riding,
big mouthing everybody, coming up, "What's up, dude?" And it's
totally.
Who is this little kid? What the hell?
I love it. Totally.
I think more than anything, that's Laurent's kind of vision, where he's he can see sort of. He's so good at what he does. I can't say that enough. Where he's he kind of sees ahead. He's we can find an advantage here. So I pre-ran 3 World Cups, and I raced in Europe.
Yeah.
And so I raced Crankworks Europe, and I got to see the European competition. And I got to see some of the World Cup tracks and how the schedule works. 2 of the World Cups I pre-ran didn't even end up on the schedule. So I pre-ran Leogang, and then I pre-ran Monte Saint Anne and Wyndham. Mm-hmm. And in Monte Saint Anne,
2014.
That was 2015. So I was 15 turning 16, and then the next year I raced World Cup.
So you pre-ran it in 16 and won it in 22.
Yeah,
that's funny.
That's crazy. Yeah,
it is when you look at that. That's
crazy.
That is just madness.
Yeah. But that's the only time. So we don't race Monte Saint Anne. We don't do Canadian Cups there. Nothing. It's only the World Cup. So that's the only time.
There's no advantage there, or anything.
Not really. The Canadian crowd is huge, but So Laurent sort of had this idea, and then I got super injured in Leogang. I crashed, but I did 15 runs one day of the World Cup track. And I was like, I'm just gonna ride. And then the next year they changed the track a bunch. I was like, okay, this is like whatever. But I still got to be there and like experience everything, and like I met everybody, and that was really cool.
And that is an advantage, just to go to a venue
sure.
and even
there's
that's
a
right.
skill level to the
That's right.
schedule.
Yeah, everything. You're just getting a feel for it.
And I think Laurent,
that's overwhelming, isn't it, when you go back?
a little bit, yeah. And Laurent is like, that was his foresight into this, and I think he knew what he was doing. And I was just like, yeah, I'm going to Europe to bike. That's what's up. And then in Wyndham, I got super injured. I was like, had a huge crash, got up. I was like, I'm fine. I'm gonna go do another run. I was like, I just need to ride slower, and just like went up. And I was like, I'm gonna do a timed run and try and beat the juniors. Third corner, over the bars, huge one. Broke my hand, broke my finger, and like couldn't ride for the rest of the year. And I was like, oh, that's still good. But it was cool because then I kind of got like that, not stupidity out of the way, but my junior career was like,
it was amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped, and it gave me a bit of an advantage.
One of the things that I wanted to get your perspective on was kind of this progression of your mindset. Like you talk about like coming in at such a young age. And to me, one of the next turning point, I'm sure there was so many of them, but one of the turning points for me was in 2022.
Yeah.
It just felt like you had come to the races and it was just so obvious that you were so much more like mentally strong, mentally confident. Can you talk about that as an athlete? Like that progression from being a kid, not knowing anything, being naive, and then almost the skill of mentality as you progress through and like maybe the different stages?
Yeah, totally. I think I already kind of said it from when I was a kid, where there's no stress about anything. You just think you're hot shit, and you're like, you walk around with your chest out. And I was like a little 16-year-old, and I was like, what's up, guys? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And back then, I was just like, I want to do good because I want to impress people and want people to think I'm dope at this. And like that works for a certain amount of time. But then when it actually gets hard, you don't do well. You're like, oh, everybody thinks I suck. I'm failing. I'm doing this. So like, I had to learn that through junior. Where in junior, I was like riding this crazy confidence wave where Laurent would really, and Kevin would really try and keep me on an even keel. But it's really hard to do that when you're dealing with like a 17, 18-year-old who's like
winning.
Just got sponsored by Red Bulls on a pro team and is like won the first World Cup. And then just keeps, I just had a really good start of my career. And I think a lot of that was riding this crazy confidence high, and you're competing with people your own age. So like people are liable to make mistakes. Like I made mistakes in junior with my riding, but I was pretty consistent, which was cool. But I think you can get ahead of yourself, you get overconfident, and then as you transition into elite, I learned this the hard way, is that you can't just do that. And if you're focused on the wrong things, and if you're just there to be like, I'm confidence man, like I'm here to prove that I'm better than everybody, I'm this, I'm that, it's never gonna work because there's no like real self-value in that, and there's no self-value in your mindset towards racing. It's like, I'm racing for the wrong reasons kind of thing.
To me, we must have shot around that time. And I remember when you went up.
This was Wild Rides in Columbia.
There you go. Yeah, that's right.
But we also did a Rob Meets in Whistler.
We did as well. That's right.
Yeah,
I remember it was around the time that you were going up to Elite, and you said to me that you wanted to be the most successful junior ever going into Elite, and you quoted Brosnan's results. And I was, and you were like, he's the most successful. And actually, in my head, I was thinking, this kid's keen. And I was super impressed. I was like, like that you found that out though, and I was like, holy shit.
Funny.
Yeah, honestly, it left its mark on me, that did. That you as a little, 16-year-old lad knew exactly what you were going to try and do the first year in Elite. You went in there with massive expectations, right?
I think that's, I've always been like a big analytical person where I like love looking at numbers, and like I love sports and I look at points per game, all these different things in basketball and hockey and whatever. Yeah. And in biking, it's the same thing. And that was the problem, is like I set these expectations, but I had no base or no leg to stand on, where it was like, I'm going to be better.
Earned it yet.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to be better than Troy moving into elites. But it was like, what? How? And I was just like, because I'm dope.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's just such like a stupid mindset where you're like a cocky little kid and you're just like, yeah, I'm dope. That's what's up.
That will take you some of the way.
It will. But then, I grew a lot, and I went from like being 60 kilos to then all of a sudden I was 80 kilos, and I was like, what is going on with all this extra body? And I couldn't like find my balance on the bike. And then mentally I just started going down this hole where it was like, whoa, I suck at this. Why don't, like, I was like, when I was in junior, I was just like on all the bike websites, Instagram wasn't, I mean, it was big, but it's not like it is today, but it was like Pink Bike Vital, where it'd be like in junior, I just get pictures in every slideshow. I was like, that's dope. And then all of a sudden I was like doing shitty and nobody cared. And I was like, that's when I like had to be like, I have to rethink what is going on. Cause I started to like be pissed off about racing. I didn't like it. I was like, why do I not feel good about my racing and all these different things? And I was like, I just need to go back to riding my bike. And I think that was a huge change for me. It took a couple years because I struggled with the bike. I struggled with myself, my fitness, my strength, like adjusting to being a bigger person and all these different things on the bike where it's not just mental, but then going through all of that has sort of built a base for me to go from, where I was like, all right, in 2021, I got faster. And by the last race, I qualified first, and then I ended up on the podium. And I was like, okay, I can do this and I can be consistent, but I need to race for the reasons that I want to race for. So for me, I love biking so much, and I love it because it's my favorite thing to do. Sure. And I care so much about having fun on my bike, where I'll go out at home and I'll ride and I'll be listening to music, or I won't be listening to whatever. And I'll be like singing and laughing and shouting. And I'm like, if I'm riding by myself in the woods, I'll be like singing a song while I'm riding, and I'll just be like, nothing else matters. And I'm so happy. And I get to the bottom, I'm like, I'll like celebrate sometimes.
Yeah,
if I ride like a trail super good, I'll like get off the bike and be like, hell yeah, like that was dope. So excited because it feels so good when you're like, I do this. This is like the best thing that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it because I love it, and I'm doing it because I really care about it. And so for me, finding the mindset that I want for racing was going back to that and being like, I train my ass off to be really fit and strong so that I can ride my bike as fast as I can when it counts. But the feeling that I get from racing when I'm riding at my very best and I feel like I'm focused and nothing else, I'm like this, and it's me and my bike, means so much to me. So I think I went back to finding that, where it's like, I don't care what people are saying about me. I don't care what Instagram says. I don't care.
Went way more internal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like an internal drive to be better, where it's not like I want to be better to prove this to somebody. And I don't want to be better because I want the results to be better. I mean, the results are just the reward of the process, I think. And so for me, it was really important to just come back to being like, I put the work in. I know that I'm good at this. I just need to ride my bike because this is what I love to do. And so I have like little things that I tell myself in the start gate. But I think in 2022, that's what I went to. I said, why am I worried about results and what people think? It's like, if I ride my bike well, I can be on the podium. So why don't I just care about riding my bike? And that changed everything for me.
It's so fascinating to hear this story, because it was a long process. And I mean, if you were to look back, do you think you would change anything? Or do you think that you had to go through that stuff?
I think I mean, can't change anything. I think you have to go through it. Everybody's got a different sort of speed at which they progress, and mine took a little bit longer than some. Just, it is what it is. I think that now it's made me a really consistent rider, and I seem to be doing sort of my best riding right now. This year I actually had a little bit of I was struggling with myself a little bit at the beginning of the season with the bike and my mindset, and then I just stepped back and I'm like, all right, let's like look at this. And I think that having those past experiences dealing with that allows me now to be like, if I drop, I'm only dropping so far because I have this gigantic support to stand on.
Yeah.
And that's like also goes hand in hand. We go back to the team where it's like, I have Kevin and Laurent and everybody else around me that sort of help me get to have that. And then it comes from myself, that just final piece of the puzzle.
Totally.
So then I think that sort of,
just the
you need it. You have
right?
to.
Like,
you have to go through it. Like,
there's like all the experiences that like build up over time.
Yeah.
You get to look back and be like, oh, cool. I can pull a piece from there. I can pull a piece from there.
Exactly. Yeah. And everybody struggles, and you gotta go through it, and it only makes you better and stronger. And it's made me I think it's made me a lot better of a person.
Yeah.
And for me, it's made me a lot more, I think it makes me a lot more like deliberate and thoughtful.
Sure.
Because I know that if I'm deliberate and thoughtful with my riding, then I'm going to do well. So if I'm deliberate and thoughtful in my regular life, then I'm going to do better and do better.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. So.
Well, I was just going to say, we're talking about you improving and getting better, and the team is incredible. And I'm going to say as well, and I'm going to ask you, how much difference? Everyone says downhill bikes are all the same. I'm going to say that
I'm
yours,
so glad that you're
it's
ask
not.
This is great.
Because the Specialized bike It's a mad prototype. We can't see what's under there anyway, but we know it's good, right? It
There's
performs
buttons.
well.
You have like multiple buttons on the handlebar.
And then the Öhlins suspension and these buttons that we see in commentary with the lights coming on and off and stuff. What do those buttons do, Finn? It's as simple as that. Just divulge the information, please.
You can tell
Internet
us.
forums around the world are waiting.
What it does?
Yeah.
Is it
Cover the mic and tell us.
It's got to be compression settings on your suspension.
I mean,
Isn't it?
kind of does whatever we need it to.
Oh, that's narrowed it down a bit. Yeah, can you find 10 seconds in the finish area?
If I need it, so
You can't see right now, but
tell you-
Finn is looking at his hand at the notes that he wrote.
say nothing. Yesterday I only used 2 of the settings, so I have 3 choices. And
So in a run, you will change settings now on your suspension.
I mean, sometimes I won't. Sometimes
you
I
can.
will. Yeah, whenever.
So
but it's not like settings. It's just like
Different maps. Is it like a map? Is it like a suspension map? So it's got to be that. Yeah, we're close. We're close.
We're not-
It's got to be a map, so it works better on the. It's not a lockout because that's 20 years ago. I had that.
It could be a
You might have
lockout.
some setup for this motorway section. You hit a button, and it's a
keen.
bit different for the trees, I'd imagine.
one of them. Like
He's not
I
nodding, though, is he? He's not. Even his eyes didn't give anything away on that. Look at this. We're not getting anything.
poker face.
We ain't getting nothing out
I
of it.
mean, we could kind of make it do whatever we want it to. So it's
I get that.
it is beneficial to our racing, but it's not like I wouldn't say it's an instant speed boost. So a lot of people look at it and they're like, those buttons. Loic won by 2.3 seconds yesterday, and I was 0.7 off third. It was like, that's 2 seconds. Right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
yeah,
not.
people are
You
saying
hear that.
that.
You hear
People
that.
are saying
It's
that.
not. Like, we do timing, and it's like...
Well, that's why I've asked
if
you the question,
still,
though.
You still
Yeah.
have to ride the bike.
Right.
You see the
Yeah.
success,
And-
see the buttons. it's like,
Hey, I haven't won a World Cup with these buttons, and I won a
No,
World Cup
that's
without
true.
them. And like Loic has won before and after and whatever. I mean, I could say the buttons do a million different things.
How
Like one
much
of them texts my
advantage-
mom or like
How much advantage is there in the bikes these days? In the differences between the bikes? Because
yeah,
we're talking tens, thousands, hundreds.
for
you
sure.
know what I mean?
It's a really hot topic right now because people are getting frustrated. Like I see a lot of things on Pink Bike with like, get rid of the suspension with the electronics. I mean, SRAM has it, Fox has it on the
Yeah.
Frameworks bikes.
Yeah.
We have it on our bikes.
Yeah.
And people are like, this is not mountain biking. Every sport needs to progress. At one point, MotoGP was just like a
Totally.
super lightweight frame with an engine in it, you know?
Yeah.
At one point, you know,
More electronics.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now there's so many. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think every sport needs to progress forward. And I think that biking as an off-road sport, I think what people don't realize is if you get it wrong, you get it really wrong.
Right.
So
Right.
I can point to certain days or results or races or whatever and be like, that was the bike's fault. But
Yeah.
it's not, you know?
So
I still have to ride the bike at the end of the day. And I think the biggest thing where we're talking about advantage from bike to bike, and it's like, yeah, it can be an advantage. But yesterday on the motorway, Luca crushed everybody
Yeah.
by like a second.
Yeah.
And he has an electronic button. I don't know what theirs does. Like maybe it's a lockout. I don't actually know. But even without that, Luca wins the motorway every single year.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
said that
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you look at it
yeah.
and you're like, okay, Luca didn't have a lockout last year, but he won the motorway.
Totally.
This year he had a lockout and he still won the motorway. It's like you still have to ride the bike at the end of the day. And
Absolutely.
it's like
Yeah.
you look at it and you're like, the Specialized works really well because Loic and I do well, and we have this year, I think.
What's the
first
head
in-
angle on that bike of yours, just to get a bit more specific? It looked like it's like 62 or something. It's slack.
I don't know.
I think that's honest. Well, I think
is
Finn.
it?
I actually don't know. No, that's dead honest. I
Oh,
don't
all right, I'll
know.
let you on.
I think Finn.
I can tell you how tall my front end is. But,
Go on.
It's 412 from axle to top
that
of,
right?
top of, yeah.
Finn, I would love to know. I think for the people out there, like when people hear like it was the bike's fault, what does a bad bike? I know that. What does a bad setup feel like? Because I think that it would be nice for people to understand like what you're searching for when a bike feels good. What does that mean? Like, is it that it doesn't kick, or like I just don't have to think about it, right? Like,
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest thing is finding the right range in which the suspension is working, as well as having a balance between the bike or the right balance for the track. So
you-
I prefer to have a softer front end because I like to sit over the bottom bracket, and then I kind of like to let the front end work in front of me. And if it's too hard, I find that I can't find the front wheel grip. So when I would struggle with the bike, let's say I have a bad race run and I'm like, it's the bike's fault. I mean, it never is the bike's fault because, like I said, you still have to ride the bike.
Yeah.
And if you're on, like any day you're on, like Loic or Amari or whatever, the bike might not be working and they'll be like, I'm hot right now. And they can just go down and podium easy.
Sure.
So there's only so like, unless the bike is really wrong.
It's not like F1 where
it's not like, my motor sucks and now I'm 12th. You know, it's like, you can still figure it out. But for me, I would say if the bike is working too much in the mid stroke or there's not enough ramp and I'm diving in at the front end, but then the rear end is working really consistently. So then I'm like always doing this, or if it's working too much in the mid stroke, it's really hard to generate speed off of anything because when you need something to push off of, you have no stability.
Yeah.
How tech is listening to this. It's so tech now.
Yeah, you end up in the mid stroke and you're like, boom,
because
it's like slow and no energy in the bike.
It's like a comfortability where you say like, given my inputs on the bike, it should do this.
Yes.
And when I push into a turn, I expect the bike to do this. And when it's not, that's
when it's frustrating. And that's when you're like, oh, the bike isn't working as well. And you kind of have to adapt the run to the bike a little bit. But if the bike is, the biggest thing for me is if I can change links and everything, and I prefer a link that sort of has a lot more support at the beginning because the way I ride, I push a lot like quickly off of things. I'm not like I'm not super, I wouldn't say flowy and smooth. As much as I'm smooth, I'm not very slow with my movements. I'm very, like I push off
dynamic.
Things. Yeah,
Gosh.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I like a lot of support. So the link that I use provides a lot of support at the start of the stroke. But in Poland, I was working too much in the mid stroke.
Yeah.
But then here, you're saying you want the bike, like let's say you want the bike to react to how you're moving. A lot of times, if the bike feels like it's not working super well because it's too stiff, you just ride faster and then the bike starts working better.
Yeah.
Because the way that the suspension works now is like, not for everybody, let's just say, how would I say this? It's feedback from the ground and feedback from your feet. So then it's like, if you put as much pressure as you can through the suspension and then you hit something really hard, but the suspension can hold up to it, you can generate speed off of that.
Sure.
So then it's like trying to find the balance of how much force is coming from the ground versus how much force is coming from the rider to find which part of the stroke you need to be in. And that's why the data acquisition is so important. So like I'll do 3 or 4 runs with the data acquisition so that we can find the exact settings that we want to use for a race run. And then I have to input my feelings. So let's say on Friday, the shock was amazing. So every time I'd come through, like at the top especially, I could feel that the bike wasn't blowing through the travel too fast. And when I was wanting to push off of the ground and really put force through it, I was able to generate speed and still hold grip because you find this weird balance of if you're pushing too much and you start losing grip, or you're too soft and you're not generating speed, but then you have amazing grip. It's really hard to find that. And like,
Yeah, because a soft bike is a slow bike.
is a slow bike, yeah. So then with the Öhlins, it's pretty precise where it's like 1 click, 2 clicks will make a world of difference. Kevin changed something on my bike and I said, it's too soft. He's like, I let 1 PSI out. And I was like, it's too soft. And then he put 2 PSI back in and it changed the bike.
Wow.
And it's like
crazy.
these little things.
It's that precise.
So then
That's how in tune you are at this level of racing and everything. That's how it
I've
is.
been riding this bike for so long, like 3 years now. And it's like, I've done, I would say 500, 600, 700, 800 runs on it. So it's like, I know exactly everything it does. So let's say I didn't ride Saturday, but on Friday, on my last run, I remembered my bike being too soft in the front. And I told Kevin in the morning, I said, front end's too soft, change it for the race run. And we changed it for the race run and then it worked. So it's like this crazy thing where Kevin...
Bit of a pump, isn't it? A little bit.
Yeah, so Kevin knows exactly what he thinks he needs to do, but he needs me to give him the feedback to tell him how to do it.
Is it hard for you? I remember when I got on a Giant, on a factory team, and I had mechanics, suspension engineers, very often, and it wasn't just me, we would tie ourselves in knots and go so far down looking for where we just keep going.
Yeah.
And, you know, way past what would have been the best setting and ended up like in a lost in the middle of nowhere. But like, you know, it's very, when you've got everything at your fingertips like that, do you find it difficult? How do you know when to stop? How do you know when your bike's a good setup?
Kevin is kind of the stopper. So Kevin spends all the time in the rabbit hole. If I get too obsessed with
Maybe you shouldn't know too much.
I'm gonna get lost.
Yeah, I got lost. That's right.
And it's really easy to get lost. And like people are always like
team,
asking me questions about these things, and I'm like, man, I put 26 PSI in the back and 24 in the front. And then it's like, I know what I put PSI in the upper and the lower chamber, and I know my settings, but like the biggest changes for me is like, I don't know how long my bike is. I don't know what the reach is. I don't know any of that. Because if I start getting obsessed with that, it's like the front end feels too low. Kevin is going to put it up higher. He's like, what do you think? I said, 5 mils. That's not enough? All right, we're going to change it. So this week on Friday, first 2 runs, I said, front end's too low. And he's like, do you trust me? And I said, yeah, I trust you. Totally changed the bike completely. I went out. I was like, that feels a lot better. Let's walk with it. And then that was what we did.
Man, so I mean, Finn, I feel like over the years you've been good at kind of turning off, I guess, in the off seasons and stuff like that. So, like one of the last things I wanted to just talk to you about was just your life at home, just the off season, being in Canada and stuff like that.
Life at home is good. I'm really lucky and blessed to live where I do, and I'm really lucky to live the lifestyle that I do because my parents sort of allowed me to live this way. Even from being a kid, I grew up in Alberta, like hiking and biking and skiing and playing hockey and soccer and all these different sports. And it was like, my parents were like, we want you to do all of these things because we want you to live like they would. So my parents...
Is my dad always in Japan letting off avalanche?
He used to be. He used to be.
Yeah, right? That's
my dad works in avalanche safety. So
he goes up mountains with dynamite.
Yeah,
what a cool job.
Yeah, he has an insane job. So both my parents are from Ontario, and then they moved, Ontario is kind of flat, and there's not really any mountains. It's sort of like where most of the people in Canada live. They're both from southern Ontario. It's like farmland area. My mom's from on the border with America. And they moved out to Banff, Alberta. And that's where they met. And my mom doesn't even watch me race. And she was like telling me when I was growing up, she's like, yeah, me and your dad like ice climbed this and then, like went up to the top of the mountain and like we camped out because we couldn't find the refuge. So we had to like bivvy and like all these different things. I was like, and you're stressed about me racing? And they're like, yeah, we free climbed this. And I was like, you free climbed it? And they're like, no ropes up like a 5-pitch climb. And I'm like, what? Like, why are you guys worried about me? Like, you guys are insane.
You guys need to chill.
Maybe that's where it comes from.
Yeah. So they both work, like my dad works for he's an avalanche forecaster, and now he's like snow safety manager for Whistler and Blackcomb. And he also teaches like industry level courses. So in Canada, if you want to be a guide, he would teach you all of the stuff that you need to know about avalanche safety. My mom works for a company called Backroads, and it's like an adventure travel company. And so they work in the outdoors.
That is so cool.
They both ride, they both ski, they both are... My dad went to university, and then he was like, I'm just going to work in skiing because I really like skiing.
Yeah,
I take after my dad quite a lot in terms of like, I'm just going to do what I want because I really like it. And then, so as I said, they sort of put me in all these things growing up. And then we moved to BC, and now we live in Pemberton. And Pemberton is like this sort of...
More remote.
Yeah, a little. It's like a small farm town. I think there's like 2,500, 3,000 people. It's like, it's really nice. It's just outside of Whistler. It sucks. Nobody come visit.
Don't go there.
No, it's a really stunning, beautiful place.
I grew Whistler.
Yeah, I grew up in Whistler. I went to elementary school and high school in Whistler, and then we moved.
Same school as Brandon Seminac. Is
that
true?
That is correct. Yeah.
And did Jackson go to the same school?
Jackson's from Squamish.
Down
so
the
it's like
road
like an hour. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. But it's, it's all the same area.
Hotbed.
Sea to sky area. Yeah, exactly. So then we moved to Pemberton a couple years ago, and for me, it's just quieter.
Yeah.
I live by myself. I like to do the things that I like to do. I spend a lot of time road riding, mountain biking, ski touring, snowmobiling.
Dude, how cold is it when you go out snowmobiling?
It depends on the day. Like most times,
give me the coldest temperature you go snowmobiling. Like, this is going to blow my mind.
It would be like minus 25, minus 30.
Minus 30, dude.
After that, it gets really bad. Like this year, we went ski touring. We do it.
How cold does it get up there? Even colder than that?
Yeah, if it's like really windy and we have an Arctic outflow, it'll be like minus 40 at the top of
Is
some
that when
mountains.
you go outside and if you don't, like, if your eyes ain't covered, they freeze and then they shatter?
No, I don't think that's possible.
What I heard.
I don't know if that's
they
possible.
Do, your eyes freeze up, I think.
I don't know. Well, this
I'm
winter,
just telling you, Finn.
This winter, me and my friend Reese and our buddy Margus went out, and it was the coldest day of the winter because we're like, it would be kind of cool to go for a ski tour just to see what it feels like.
What was the temp?
at the top of the ridge, it was like minus 30, minus 35 with wind chill.
Wow.
But like you're ski touring, so you're always moving. And it's
Yeah.
like you do your like transitions, you take your things off. It's stupid, but it was like kind of just did it to be like, we're hard, which is so stupid. It's like
cool.
such a dumb thing.
It's
But
quite dangerous.
yeah, I would never actually like normally go out and do stuff in that weather, but this year
Because
we were, like,
it's really risky.
yeah,
right?
it's
Anything
really,
goes wrong, you're going to die quick.
yeah, so you have to be like, trust the guys you're with. You have to be like very dialed with your food, with your
Oh.
gear, like make sure you have all of your extra gloves, your layers.
So you
I
ain't
had,
messing
like,
about?
No, you have to be super dialed going out in those conditions. And like, you know, it's not, we skied super mellow things because if you have an avalanche in that kind of weather, it's unpredictable because the winds are in Canada, it's like called reverse loading because all the winds come from the south and now they're coming from the north. So then all the loose snow gets blown over. And I don't need to talk about avalanches, but
Yeah.
Hanging out with your dad.
yeah,
It's amazing.
So skiing really, because if you get in an avalanche and that, it's you're dead.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna
You
be
know,
so
it's
cold.
no
There's no
survival,
recovery.
yeah.
You have to use your in reach to call. Like you're out of service the whole time. And so yeah, the balance between riding and not riding is like when I ride. Like I'm here in Europe, I will ride every day.
Yeah.
And then I'll go home in October and I'll like chill, ride with my friends. We'll like go for 3 runs. We'll like cook up hot dogs on a
Right.
barbecue in the back of the truck, and then. As soon as winter comes, I try and take a month off the bike.
Yeah.
Like I'll do like all of January where I just like, I don't need to touch my bike.
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
going to go skiing, hang out,
Good on you.
train full time, but I don't need to bike because I think that if you do it all the time, every day, you start,
You might
You
burn
lose-
out.
yeah,
eh?
you need time
You need
off
a month
of
to
everything.
realize how much you miss it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you start itching. You're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait to bike, you know?
So, Finn, I guess maybe last question is like, if you had to give me one goal or like outcome that you would love this year, what would that be?
I mean, results wise, I would love to win the overall. I think that that's been something that I've been building towards for a really long time. I mean, right now it's hard to think about that because we're only 3 races in, but I think that my riding has been really consistent this year. So if Loic continues to ride the way he does, might be a pretty tall task, but
Tricky.
yeah. But I think winning the overall is definitely the goal. World Championships, of course, but I think I just need to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like focusing on results is a surefire way to get in your own head
Totally.
and start making mistakes and ending up like at
You love
races
it.
where you're like,
I think
yeah.
the one thing I've taken from this chat is how much you love racing and how
Yeah.
interested you
And
are
I-
in it and how much you want to win it and how just intricate your approach is.
Yeah.
It's
For
insane
sure.
to talk to you.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like it's been amazing to see you progress and learn and grow. And I feel I'm super just proud of the way that you've approached
man.
everything. I think you're a great ambassador for the
He's a
sport.
legend.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you.
guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming
yeah,
on.
thanks for
Yeah,
coming,
thank
mate.
you
It's
for
brilliant.
having me.
And good
Really
luck for the rest of
appreciate
the
it.
season.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Beat
much.
Bruni.
Yeah, I would like to. We'll see. Yeah.
Oh, good. See you soon, Finn.
Cheers, boys. Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.